As you turn to chapter 2, I call this the third entity. Now, to give you a foundation for this lecture is one I'm probably most known for wherever I go. This came out of my own personal journey and thinking about relationships, but also to think about something I've learned through research. And if we're intellectually honest today, if we're intellectually honest, you do not have to be a Christian to have a good marriage. I have a friend, he and his wife are Buddhists. They have phenomenal marriage. They're very healthy, mature people. I love being around them. I also know some Christians who are miserable, mean people, have bad marriages. So if we're honest intellectually, you do not have to be a Christian to have a good marriage. And we want to talk about then, why is it that atheists can report better marriages than Christians? Why is it that people who could care less about the things of God can have a good marriage? It's because they put something in the practice I think that we need to look at. And I call this lecture, The Power of Us. The Power of Us. So we're looking on page 20. The most important part of any relationship is not the husband and it's not the wife. The most important part of a relationship is the third part of your marriage. If the third part of the marriage wins, you both win. If the third part of your marriage loses, you both lose. And for the sake of my discussion, please hang with me, though what I'm about to say may get controversial. I'm going to take God out of the equation completely. To address this issue, then why is it that unbelievers, non-believers in Christianity can have a healthy marriage? So, we're going to address that issue. We're going to put God over here. I will bring him back in for a minute, okay? The most important part of any marriage is not the husband, it's not the wife. It's the thing that the Bible refers to in Genesis 2:24. You shall leave, cleave, and become what? One. Well, think about that. What is one flesh? I mean, what is that? If I gave you a definition of it, you could walk out here and quote me today and be proud that you know it. But that's not really important to me. Because I could tell you about joy, but not have joy, right? I could preach on peace, but not have peace. So, forget the definition of one flesh. One thing that I want to know is, if you had this thing called one flesh, how would you know it if you had it? I mean, what would indicate to you that you had it? Because one thing for sure, you may not be able to find it, but if you knew it when you had it, at least you know it. You with me? And so I'm going to give you a more contemporary term for one flesh. I like to use the word us. The most important part of the marriage is not the husband, it's not the wife, it's us. And when us wins, you both win. You both win. Now, what is us? Us is not me and it's not her. It's not Luella, it's not I. It's us. Us is like the essence of both of us. You always know when us is around because you can feel its presence. And guess what else? You can feel its absence, can't you? I mean, you want three people in your bedroom every night. You want you, her, and us. There have been times in my marriage that I was there and Luella was there, but us was not in the house. My kids know when us is in the house because they can feel its presence and they can also feel its what? Its absence. You see, for us to win, you have to practice this thing called humility. But I don't humble myself to Luella. I humble myself to us. Because it takes two to make us and one to kill us. But when us wins, we both win. Because when I give to us, I'm not just giving to her, I'm also giving to who else? To me. I give to both of us. If I don't give to us and she does, there's not going to be any us around. But if I make us the most important part of the marriage, I would do things like die to self. Well, why would I die to self? For Luella? No. I die to self for the sake of us. Us wins, we both win. And I would exalt her more highly than myself for the sake of who? Us. Because when us wins, I love it when us is around. Us is expandable. You could be right next to each other every night and have no us. I could be 500 miles away from her and still have us. Because you can always sense it, can't you? There have been times I go, hey, do you feel any us around? Nope. Okay, I'm right. What's up? Because I don't like living in a house where there's no us. I want us. I grew up in a home where there wasn't a lot of us. I ain't living that way as an adult if I don't have to. That make sense? Now, here's the interesting thing about us. Us is different than the individuals. You'll notice on page 20 there, I talk about an I-you versus an I-it relationship. When you live in an I-you, you're honoring us. Because you realize that this relationship is not just about me, it's also about you. And in an I-you relationship, you're honoring the relationship. But whenever I start working against us for me, this is now about me, not us, then I have to treat you as an it. Because now it's about me meeting my needs, not what's best for who? Us. And so an I-you posture is when you honor us. The I-it posture is you dishonor us, and this is about you. And I go, that's okay if you want to operate that way. Just don't complain about what happens to us when you do that. That make sense? So sometimes I go, boy, I know what I feel like saying, but if I do, it ain't going to be good for us. It might be good for me, but it won't be good for us. But if your decisions are based on what's best for us, you both win. A couple years ago, I was offered a position at a very large Healthy Marriage Coalition. Would have been a great job for me, personally and professionally. However, it was not going to be good for who? Us. And I did not take it, because us is more important. Now, I may have taken it, and Luella would have went, but that's where they're going to go. Does that make sense? You have to honor us. But most people dishonor us, and they want their own way. I go, that's okay. You can have your own way, but don't complain about what happens to us. Because you're doing everything it takes to tell us, I don't want you here, go on a hiking trip. And it won't stick around the house, because what you're doing is saying, I don't want you here. But when us wins, you both win. Does that make sense? Let me tell you the interesting thing about us. Us is actually different than the individuals. It doesn't operate the same. Example, I don't like malls. I don't go to malls. I stay out of malls. You with me? I hate malls. I think malls were made by a bunch of men who figured out a female mind, said, let's put it all under one building, we'll have them trapped. I don't like malls. Does that make sense? All right? That's just my philosophy. I promise you, though, if you see me in a mall, Don's this way, if you see me in a mall, it is because I had to go to that store, I get what I want, and once I get it, guess what I do? I get out of the mall. Is that clear? I don't like malls. It's not something that Rick Marks does. However, even though I don't like the mall, us likes the mall. Us will go to the mall and stay for hours. Because when us goes to the mall, that's not me, that's us. You with me? Us likes malls, I don't. Because when us goes to the mall, when us goes to the mall, we're walking, talking, holding hands. Us likes that. You got it? I don't do malls. Us likes malls. I'm a big American history nut, I told you. I love battlefields. Go to battlefields as much as I can. I just got done doing a marriage seminar for a very small church in rural Mississippi. I'm way out there, and there's a battlefield nearby. Guess what I do? I go visit the battlefield, right? I was in Nashville doing some work. Went and visited Stone River's battlefield. I like battlefields. My wife would never, ever, I mean, I can't imagine going through life without going to a battlefield. She would never go to a battlefield, ever. But guess who likes going to battlefields? Us will go. Not as often as I would like, but it will go. All right? Us likes battlefields. She does not. I'm 47 years old right now. When I was 40 years old, I was given a gift by the lay people that worked in the family ministries with me at the church I served at. And my 40th birthday gift, guess what it was? 3 nights and 4 days in Gettysburg. You hear it already. During Civil War Heritage Week, which was the week of the battle, and thousands of reenactors show up. All right? Tickets to the grandstands to be on the front row to watch all the reenactments. And they are tickets for 2. Woohoo! Talk about paradise. And us decided Don went with me. and us had a good time, and me and Don had a good time. Because us understood she does not need to be there. Does that make sense? Us doesn't always do things together, does it? Us makes decisions that benefit who? Us. Us understood she doesn't go to this one. She knew it, I knew it, us knew it. And us said, ask Don to go. I was like, yeah, because I knew you didn't need to be there. That would not be an us event, right? That's purely a Rick event. Did you get the point? When us wins, everyone wins. But you have to humble yourself and give to who? What will kill your usness off? Pride, resentment, bitterness, and selfishness. And the moment you start acting in those ways, us goes, apparently you don't need me here. I'll leave the house until you invite me back. And I always tell people, you're doing everything it takes to kill your usness off. Don't complain about it. You keep saying you want to be connected. What you're doing keeps you disconnected. You're not giving to us, you're giving to you. That's okay, but don't complain about what happens to us. Because us requires humility. Now, I need to put Father back into this equation. Anybody can do what I just talked about. It is the human side of relationships, of intimacy that God put in all humans. Anyone can do the usness part. So where does God fit into this equation? God made all of us. He has loved us perfectly for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And yet, at a certain point in time, many, many years ago, God got to a point, this is crucial, he no longer felt love for us. He actually felt sorry that he made us. You see, this happens sometimes in Christian marriages. I'm sorry that I married you. And what happens is, when they get to the point they no longer feel love, but feel sorry that I married you, we kill it off and we call it divorce. God was there. Genesis 6, verse 6. And it grieved God in his heart that he made man. And the rest of verse 6 and 7 goes on to say, I'm killing all of you. That's really, really sad. I'm done. I'm sorry I did it. You're out of here. So why are we here today in 2009 talking about this? Think about it this way. God's creation, his bride. I don't know why I married you. I feel sorry that I did. But he's still married to us. He didn't get rid of the relationship. Why are we here? Because of verse 8. But Noah found favor. But Noah found favor. God didn't save Noah for Noah's sake. God saved Noah for himself. His own needs. Because God understood, if I do what I feel like doing, getting rid of all of you, I lose. I'm not losing. And so, in spite of how I feel right now, I'm going to act lovingly and give to this relationship. Why? Because I want it. Even though I don't feel like it right now, I still want it. And this is the difference between when you lose your sense of usness, now you give to the relationship. Why? Well, because those of us who bear the name of Christ, we have a higher obligation to give when you don't feel like it. Father modeled it for us with his bride. Well, I didn't feel like it either, Rick, but I want you to do it anyways. Well, I don't feel like it. I know. Give to the relationship anyways. Act in a loving way. But I don't feel like it. I know that, son. Act in a loving way anyways. I modeled it for you. Do what I did. Live the way that I do, as Jesus would say. Give to the relationship whether they give to you or not. Whenever you lose your sense of usness as a believer, you have a higher calling to give to us, as opposed to the person who doesn't have that higher calling. Because he modeled all of it for us with his bride. Now you get to go model him. That makes sense? I think of it this way. You know, guys, we'll pick on the guys for a minute. All those things that your wife didn't tell you that was issues in her life that you learned about after she got married. And you're like, whoa, I didn't know she acted this way. Why is she acting this way? Why is she doing these things to me? Because our role as husbands and wives is rooted in theology, not psychology. In other words, the Lord looks at me and says, what's wrong, Rick? Luella's acting that way. Well, how's it for you? I'm just so frustrated. Hey, what are you doing back, though? I'm trying to get her to stop and shut up. Sick of it. Well, Rick, let me tell you why I have her acting that way right now. All right? Did you know that the same way she's treating you, you treat me? But I never thought of it that way. Well, how do I treat you when you're treating me the same way? Patiently and kindly. I want you to practice it with her now. Luella's in my life so that I can practice Father's heart. Luella's in my life so I can practice those 15 traits of love. Luella's in my life so that I can develop Father's heart and treat her the same way he treats me when I do the same thing to him. And ladies, I submit it's the same way with you back to your husband. Because I always think about it this way. We always go, well, yeah, he's the male, he's the head of the home. That's true. But if everybody died in the world, all Christians died in the world, except for one female who's a Christian, Got it? She's still the bride, isn't she? How does her husband treat her? And she is supposed to do the same thing to her husband. You see, it's a level playing field at the cross. We're all to treat each other the same way. We're to treat each other the same way. Does that make sense? Comments or questions about this usness lecture before I take it to help you understand power struggles in just a minute? All right, then. Look on page 21. To help you understand power struggles is to help you understand the nature of decision making. The nature of decision making. In every relationship, there is an area of decision making that belongs to me. They're my decisions to make. There's a level of decision making that belongs to Luella. They're hers to make. But then there's a level of decisions that don't belong to either of you. They belong to us. And power struggles arise when you're not respecting where decisions lie. An example from my own life is that when I first got married, I was still in the military. I was in pretty good shape. But for whatever reason, well, I know the reasons, my wife felt this need to control what I ate and dictate what I ate. And so one day I came home and she was making some tuna salad. And I looked and I noticed there was no mayonnaise on the counter. There was yogurt there. And I looked at that and I said, "You aren't putting yogurt in tuna salad, are you?" She said, "Just let me fix it." And I went, "Well, you can fix it, but I don't want yogurt in my tuna." "Well, you've been eating that way. You've been eating it for a week that way." I said, "Well, it stops today." Another time I came home, I was in the Navy still, going to school at night, working on my bachelor's degree, and there was this nice rice dish where newlyweds, right? Nice rice dish. We sit down, we say our blessing. I go, "There's liver in there." She says, "Yep, just wanted to make sure you didn't like it." It's like, take my word for it. Here's Luella trying to control what I eat and dictate what I eat. And whenever you do, you're going to be in a what? A power struggle. Because you're not respecting decision makings. Decisions that are mine, decisions that are hers, they require no communication skills. You just do them. And if I start making decisions that are hers, that are not mine to make, we're going to be in a power struggle. It's just the way life is. But then there's a realm that doesn't belong to either of you. They belong to the relationship. What are some us decisions? Buying a car, where you live, those kind of things, how you parent. All of those belong to the relationship. If I was to leave here today and go buy an $80,000 car, I could choose to do that. However, the question is that my decision to make, hers decision, or is that an us decision? That's an us decision. That is an us decision. And us has to make those decisions. And whenever your decision making starts affecting who? Us, you better have good communication and problem solving skills to navigate through there. Because there is a realm of decision making that doesn't belong to me or her. I just gave you some of them. But there's a realm of decision making that are really mine, but affects us. Let's say I was to say say to Luella, "Hey, Luella, I'm talking to Don, my brother, and we've decided that we are going to go hunting in 3 weeks." If Luella says, "No, you're not," I'm going to go, "Oh, yes, I am." Because that's not her decision to make. That's my decision. But I also recognize that that decision is going to affect who? Us. I want us more than me. So in that case, I will what? Respect us enough to go check out my decision with her. Is there anything that you could think that might preclude me from going? Yeah, remember we had talked about going and seeing my dad that weekend. Oh, that's right. And then her and I negotiated time that I can go back to Don and say, "Hey, how about this?" Because some decisions are yours, but you don't realize that that decision isn't just about you, it's affecting us. Those decisions you need to check out with us. That makes sense? And then you decide, because you care more about us than you do you, which is more important. But whenever your decisions start affecting the relationship, you've got to have good communication and problem-solving skills to navigate through those us worlds. All right? Comments or questions about any of that? Whenever you lose your sense of usness, that's okay. Father lost it at once for sure that we know of in Genesis 6, verse 6. But he gave to us in spite of how he felt. You get to model the same thing. You got to fight for your usness. You got to fight for it. You got to want it to be the priority. And if it becomes a priority, you're going to humble yourself. You'll not say what you feel like saying. Proverbs says that even a fool appears wise when he keeps his mouth shut. And I've looked smart many times now, because I used to spout off, and I've learned I don't need to do those things. That's immature. You see, because I would rather keep us around than me around. Because if I win and us loses, I'm going to argue everyone loses and my kids lose. My kids lose, and I'm not living in a way that they lose. Am I perfect? No. Do I make mistakes? You bet. Do I fight for us the best I know how? You bet. 25 years. And I will another 25 should the Lord tarry. Divorce is never, ever something I've ever brought up. Told Luella, if you ever leave me, I am going with you. It's the way it is. All right? It's not an option. I'm the generational sins of the Marxes and the Sellers and the Fowlers, her side, and my two sides, as best as I know how, stop with me. And I'm banking on the verse that says, the generation that follows my commands, I will bless 1,000 generations. And I know that my brother Don and his wife Melinda are banking on the same thing. Stop that old sin curse of the Marxists and the Sellers and get rid of it. Create something new and different. Comments or questions? Anyone?
You may have said it, but obviously the us is at one point the me and the her, and then we become the us, and then when we have to make an us decision, there's a part of me that is involved in that decision. So where does that, when we make the us decision, what happens? Where does my thinking go? What I want?
Here's the neat thing. Question is, well, when I'm making a decision, what happens to my needs? When us becomes your priority, you decide whether you want that or not for the sake of us. And that's the beauty about us is you're not being controlled. Let's say I come home and I'm wanting some like, hey, how about tonight, Luella? Right? How about tonight? And she says, no, I got a headache. I get to make a choice in that moment. Choice for me would be something like this. You know, I'm sick and tired of your headaches. Why don't you gargle on Tylenol? Now, you can do that. But the moment you do that, us goes, oh, you don't want me here. And us going to walk out. And us decision goes, she's hurting worse than me. Hey, what can I do to help take care of you tonight? Us will deny its own needs. And us decision denies the self needs for the sake of what? The relationship. And then since she knows that there's a need in the us, she might say, but hey, come home tomorrow and I'll make it worth your while. Why? Because she understands that us has a need she wants to give to, just not now. The beauty about us is when you give to us, you're actually practicing humility. You decide to get that need met or not. You made the decision not to get it met for the sake of the relationship, rather than someone going, no, I ain't doing it, and not caring about the need. The beauty of us is, I didn't make that decision. That's about control, it's about power, it's about self-management, that's about self-regulation and relationship management. Or what some people call emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. I recognize that there are times that I have a need, but they can't all get met, and one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. No, Rick, now's not a good time. Well, I want it met. I know you do. Not right now. Well, how am I going to get the needs met? Father says, trust me. Trust me. All needs come from me anyways. I will supply all your needs according to, right? His riches in Christ Jesus, so I'll meet your needs, son. You got to trust the Father to meet them. So when we start going trying to get them ourselves, we get in trouble. I call it, I would say something like this. I go, well, if you want to go eat that apple, go right ahead. But don't complain about what the fruit gets you. Go, what you're about to do is eating fruit. Now, if you want to eat fruit, go ahead, but don't complain about what fruit gets you. Fruit moves you into shame and fear and pain. But don't okay, you'll get your need met temporarily. But eating that fruit doesn't bring you where you think it does. It takes you where you don't want to go. So if you want to eat the fruit, feel free. That's how I kind of regulate myself. If I do what I'm about to do or say what I want to say, that's like me eating fruit. I'm going to say this because I'm going to feel better. But I'll go, well, this ain't. Because the moment I say what I feel like saying, I was going to go, oh, you don't want me here, Rick. You don't want me here, Rick. I'm leaving. And it will walk out the door until I practice humility, forgiveness, repentance, and invite it back in. That help? Yes.
When we see our decisions as glorifying God, when God's the uniting factor in this, us, it's really God. That we're not just pleasing us; we're glorifying God. We're pleasing God.
Yeah, there is a lecture I do that's not a part of this curriculum. It's a part of my intensive weekends, though. Protestants have quit teaching the theology of marriages. Only one church continues to teach the historical theology of marriage from the Scripture, and it's the Catholic Church, which is also why they're also anti-contraception. It ain't just because they're mean. It has to do with the image of God. There's a theology behind why. But Protestants quit. The idea is that when God, when believe, cleave, they should become one, there's a Trinity implied already in the garden. It's not that it was just Adam and Eve. There was an implied Trinity. Who's the third part of the relationship? God is. God's the implied Trinity. In other words, theologically speaking, your marriage, see, why did God make marriage in the first place? It's real simple. Because marriage is the only relationship that humans can enter into that image the Trinity. There is no other relationship that images a Trinity. But and love always gives birth to something else. Perfect love can never stay contained. It keeps creating. It creates. All right? Because that's what love does. Love gives birth. It gives birth. It can't stay confined. So God knew when I put you two together, you have to go make families, not just to populate, because my love cannot stay confined. It has to create. It gives birth. It creates something. And that's what it does. But marriage, rightly divined, is to image the family of God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Man can't understand this unless he enters into that in the deepest meaning. And so your marriage actually is a testimony of the image of God to the world. And Satan knows this. And when you break marriage down, you distort the image of God to the world. You distort his image to the world. Have you ever been around an older married couple that loves each other wonderfully? People are drawn to them, especially young couples. They're drawn to them. Why? They don't understand they're actually seeing the image of God. It draws you. But then how many Christian couples have you seen that nobody's drawn to them? Because you can sense there's no, this image is either image God or you're imaging something else. And that's what we've done in the Western culture. We've not imaged the image of God in our marriages. We've imaged something else. Because we're no different. And you wonder why the world doesn't want what we have? They go, look at you people. How are you different? We're not. Because of the image. That make sense? So if you understand the power struggles and the power of us, then you'll see on page 21 to ask yourselves right now, what areas of your relationship are us decisions for you? Because we recognize in our work that if you're a billionaire, buying a $35,000, $40,000, $80,000 car may not be an us decision. There are factors that preclude what's an us decision, all right? That decide what's an us decision. So think about some of those things on page 21. And then lastly, on page 22 is a questionnaire for you all to do. And it's called What About Us? And what we'd like you to do in a minute is stop the tape, and we want you to go through this questionnaire. And what ways do you believe that you give to your sense of usness? What prevents you from giving to that usness? Is it anger, resentment, pride? What does your us like to do that you personally don't like to do? What does your partner do that motivates you to want to give to us? What does your partner do that inhibits you from wanting to give to us? And lastly, how do you think your own sense of self, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your own view of who you are either hinders or helps your ability to give to us? So, as you wrap up chapter 2, fight for your usness, make it the most important. Oh, and by the way, whenever you lose your sense of usness, remember, God fights for us even when we don't. Just model him. Thank you.